My fishing business and this YouTube channel, very literally in every sense of the words, changed my life. And I'm gonna tell you more about that. You know, as a kid, most everyone has a few wild ideas of what they want to be when they grow up. Maybe it's a famous athlete, or maybe it's a rock star, a musician, or an astronaut, or who knows what. I certainly had a few of those wild ideas growing up myself, but one thing that actually kind of stuck with me throughout the years, even as I got older, was this idea of being like a TV fishing personality. Basically having my own TV fishing show. On the weekends, I used to sit and watch all these shows on TV with my dad, and I even went to the video store to rent some of them. Once I found that they were available there, you know, it was stuff like watching Jimmy Houston kiss his largemouth bass before he threw it back, and watching Bill Dance swivel in his chair and fall in the water and do goofy stuff like that, or Babe Winkleman talking about his latest fishing adventure while a steaming hot cup of coffee is like rolling up in front of a fireplace and mounted fish in the back and all that kind of stuff, right? It was all entertaining to be sure, but I kind of watched those shows with a different perspective than most kids, I think. Like, it wasn't just entertainment for me, I was studying. I was taking notes. If there was one gripe I had with these shows, however, is that it didn't really seem real to me, or at least not real to my own experiences on the water. Initially, I thought maybe I just wasn't a good enough fisher person at that age, and that was probably in part true, but eventually I started to wonder if this was really any different than like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or professional wrestling, and I thought maybe someday my dad would pull the rug out from under me on this one as well. Of course, he didn't have to, though. Like most childhood dreams, mine eventually started to kind of fade away as I got close to college age and started on my path to a 15-year career in the investment world. In the beginning, it was certainly challenging and even fulfilling, but as I got close to my first full decade in the corporate world, something just seemed to be missing for me. And then I started suffering from a lot of health problems and physical discomfort being at the desk all day. I felt like a caged zoo animal that is like really needed to return to the wild. Of course, it's one thing to actually start a business, and it's another to get real customers and make money doing it to pay the bills. You know, I set up a website and a Facebook page, of course, and all the stuff that you're supposed to do. And I had business cards and marketing materials and all that stuff. But I figured the best way that I could really prove to people that I could catch fish and that they could have a good time doing it was to show me doing that on a video. So the YouTube channel in the beginning wasn't about subscription growth or monetization. It was simply a proof of concept, a way to show people what they could have if they booked a guide service trip with me. Slowly but surely, it started to work, and people started to notice me from the YouTube channel and book fishing trips because of it. And in the process, I realized a couple of important things about myself. First, I actually really enjoyed making the videos and trying to improve my craft of video making. And then I also realized I had a very deeply creative side of me, something that needed to be tapped into to kind of fuel my very unique and personal passion for everything that I was doing in this fishing world. As the video count started to pile up and people started subscribing and the watch hours grew and the number of views grew and all of that, it occurred to me that in a way my childhood dream had actually come full circle. Like, I really had a TV fishing show. That's what I was doing. And if it continued to grow, maybe that would be like the missing link for me. I could do that instead of part-time work in the winter and essentially fish for a living full-time. That was the dream. When I started the guide service, I honestly didn't know how long I would keep it going or if it would succeed, but I just knew it was something that I really needed to do for myself at that point in time in my life. But then the realization that this whole YouTube thing could kind of complete that picture for me, even though it was a little financially sketchy at the beginning, that whole idea was just extremely liberating for me. It was liberating in the sense that I really felt like I controlled my own destiny. It was all up to me. I could live and die by what I did, as hard as I worked, and everything that I put out in my fishing business and on this YouTube channel. So then I basically had a new goal for myself, which was financial freedom. I wanted to make a living doing exactly the things that I was drawn to do. That's it. All of this was clearly a very welcome change from my previous life in the corporate world, but then about a year ago, I discovered that perhaps this whole change was even more important than I understood in the beginning. I certainly had been doing much better physically after making this change, being outside, being active. A lot of the stuff that I was struggling with, sitting at a desk all day, had started to fade away to some extent. But I started to feel this need to kind of dig back into what was going on with me, because I didn't feel like I fully understood it. And I didn't feel like I fully had all of the answers I had been looking for. And I was still struggling with some things, even in this new career path. And I wanted to know if I could get beyond that. Perhaps it was just this openness to hearing the answers that kind of brought it to me, or maybe it was just finding the right people. I don't know exactly, but eventually I was diagnosed with a connective tissue disorder. It's a version of something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a genetic disorder at its heart. It's a defect with collagen protein production, which affects everything from your joints to your tendons to your skin, fascial tissue, organs, things that hold stuff together. It's maybe kind of a crude analogy, but it's kind of like building a house with like plywood instead of pine. Like you have the structure, it's there, but it's not quite as stable and reliable as it should be. So since it does make a lot of this connective tissue very loose, a lot of people present as completely hypermobile, loose, really have a hard time keeping it together. And then other people present extremely tight and stiff because their body is trying to compensate for all of this stuff and hold everything together. So in my case, what that kind of does for me is my body kind of is tense when it doesn't have to be and finds weird ways to compensate for movement. And thus I wind up with a lot of repetitive motion injuries and stuff like that. And I get a lot of fatigue and exhaustion from doing things that require me to do a lot of standing all day long. So I feel much better when I'm moving frequently, and that's a big part of why this guide service and fishing business has been a huge help for me. It is something that there really is not a cure, quote unquote, for. Basically, it's something that you learn to deal with and manage, and the most important way to manage it is through a lot of physical therapy, a lot of exercise, a lot of movement, a lot of training, but it has to be done at the right pace so that you don't overexert and overexhaust yourself and get into that repetitive stress, injury, and fatigue place. So it's a big balancing act, and it involves just a lot of retraining and makes you very hyper aware of everything that's going on in your environment as your nervous system is trying to figure out how to best navigate the situation. Now, I've been putting off making this video for a long time, in part because I kind of wanted to fully understand what it was I was dealing with and how to best explain it in a short video, but also, to be completely honest, because I was afraid. Maybe somewhat afraid of coming to terms with what this thing is and what that actually meant. Something that can be treated to a degree, but ultimately not cured. But I was also afraid how you would react, all the viewers. I was afraid how my clients would react, if I would lose business over this. And if I did end up losing clients because they didn't feel like I could do the job, then that meant ultimately I would end up losing the number one thing that I had found to help make me feel better in all of this, and that was terrifying. But now that I've been doing this for over 5 years now at this point, I've gained a lot more confidence in my abilities and feel a lot better about how I'm managing and dealing with this diagnosis, this lifestyle change. I've also had hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 people come fish with me and experience that and continue to come back year after year after year, which tells me that they know as well as I do that I can do this job and I can succeed at doing this, and they'll have a great time when they come along with. And I've gained a lot of confidence based on their faith in me to do this work. And I've had many, many thousands of people watch these videos, which are so much a product of all of my blood, sweat, and tears, all the stuff that you might not see behind the scenes, which made being afraid to share this kind of seem silly when I thought about it that way. As I've said before, I made the conscious decision to make authenticity a big, big theme of this channel. Of course, I edit videos, otherwise they would be like 5 or 6 or 8 hours long, but I make an attempt to capture the reality of fishing, the things that went well that day, the things that went poorly that day, just compress it all down to what is the story of the day and bring you in for how that felt for me so that you get the most authentic representation of that experience. And you know, whether good things happen or bad things happen, I think all of those are learning opportunities, and that's a big part of what YouTube is for a lot of people, is a place to learn. And the best way to teach, I think, is to be authentic and give them the real experience. So eventually it came to a point where not sharing this information with you just felt extremely authentic, which was obviously the opposite of what I wanted to accomplish. I don't know where I would be or what life would be like if I had continued to work at my desk job for the last 6 years, but I know for a fact it would be a lot worse than this. There's something about being outside and being in nature and being active that is just irreplaceable to my sense of well-being. And it's probably very similar for a lot of people, honestly, perhaps you too. Sharing that experience with those that are fishing with me in my boat or those that are watching these videos, it just magnifies that effect several times over. And the fact that I truly love everything that I do and that even the bad days seem better than other alternatives, it just keeps filling my tank and making me want to come back for more and be ready for the next day. But to be real, sometimes I have to pace myself. Sometimes I need to take some breaks. Sometimes I need to block off a day or two here and there on my schedule so I don't get too full. Sometimes I need to sit down on the boat a little bit while my clients are fishing so that I can take a load off. Whatever I need to do to take care of myself consciously. When I'm guiding, it's no big deal because it's all about the clients anyway, so it's about their experience, and whether or not I continue to fish with them or don't is not really a big deal. When it comes to making videos, sometimes it means maybe I film in 3 or 4 or 5 hours instead of a 7 or 8 hour day. Try to get as much as I can out of it, maybe make it more of a topical concept video, and then, you know, I can save some time to rest and recoup when I get back home and then be ready to go for the next day. And that's how YouTube specifically really changed my life beyond just the fishing aspect of this. I have total flexibility to manage my own schedule, do what fits for my body. I can take breaks, I can choose the times that I prefer to work. I can even lay down on the couch with my laptop instead of sitting at a desk while I'm working. Sometimes I just need a change of position so I don't get into that repetitive stress situation and just take pressures and loads off of different areas of my bodies. And I have the ability to do that without looking like a weirdo in an office gig. You know, I can't necessarily lay down on the floor between typing on my computer or working on a spreadsheet, you know. And then bigger picture, like I can fit in doctor visits, I can fit in physical therapy appointments, which I tend to have a lot of during the winter while I'm in the off season, to try to do as much of that as I can to prepare me for the heavy fishing season. Basically, it's just a very customizable lifestyle when you're a YouTube creator and running your own fishing guide business. But even beyond that, it gave me something new and creative to do that kept my juices flowing, that kept the passion growing, to keep fueling what I was doing with the guide service. I had this feeling that would never end, that it would always be new and exciting to me. But I'm hedging against that, just like I don't want that to become too much like a job, and having this back and forth of guiding and creative videos, it just keeps that cycle flowing back and forth. It keeps it fresh, it keeps it interesting. They just complement each other so well, even if guiding does sometimes kind of elbow out the time scheduling for making videos, which is fine. I make the videos when I'm able to make the videos, and that seems to go great. And it even gives me a way to preserve my fishing memories, both to relive them, but also to learn from them. Every video edit process is kind of like a hands-on course in like self-improvement, learning how to improve as a fisherman, improving my communication skills, improving my cinematic skills, and just creativity in general. 6 years of running a YouTube channel is literally a life-changing experience. You will go through something in that process. The stuff you learn, and just the fact that you're re-watching what you did every time, and then trying to do it better the next time, and then better the next time. Like I can't think of anything else that I've done in my life that is more illuminating and helpful for becoming a better person, at least when it comes to like you know, a professional career as opposed to, you know, personal relationships and family and stuff like that. It's like a constant learning therapeutic process, and it's amazing. It's great. Like this decision to start a fishing guide business and start a YouTube channel was, career-wise, it's the best decision I've ever made in my life, easily. And it's literally the best path I could come up with to best manage my personal situation, the things that I have come to learn and know about myself. And literally the only reason I can do it is because of you. The people that watch these videos, the people that subscribe to Patreon to help support the channel, the people that come book fishing trips and fish with me year after year after year. Literally none of this is possible without you. And I don't know how to be any more grateful for any of that. I don't know. So I guess the reality of it is that it wasn't really fishing or YouTube that changed my life so much as it was you. And I try to remember that every single day, everything that I work on, my work matters because of you. So thank you. Whew. Sometimes the best things are the hardest things. We can do hard things. We can do hard things.